Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai. Yay, da, da, 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 yay, da, da, yay, da, da, yay, da, da, yay, da, da, da. Boker Tov. Last week, our morning meditations focused on Birchot HaShachar, the short blessings that begin the day. And this week we are continuing now our journey through the next section of the morning service, Psukei de Zimra, the Psalms of Praise. It's a series of psalms that function, according to the rabbis, as the prayer before the prayer, a kind of spiritual intention or warm-up. By reciting these psalms of gratitude and of praise, we set our intentions for the day. Yesterday we reflected on the blessing that opens this section, Baruch She'amar, which speaks of the power of our words to create worlds. This morning we're going to continue with the first psalm in the section, Psalm 100. If you are following along in Mishkan Tefillah, either the physical book or the virtual book, unfortunately there is just a partial version of this psalm. You can find the whole version of the psalm in pretty much any text that contains the book of Psalms. I will especially recommend this book called Songs Ascending, the book of Psalms in New Translation. It's a beautiful, beautiful translation of the Psalms. And this one, Psalm 100, focuses on thanks. Let me read the psalm, the whole psalm, and then we'll focus on a couple verses for our meditation this morning. But it's a very short psalm. A psalm of thanks. Sound truah, the horn, to Adonai, all the earth. Serve Adonai with delight. Come into God's presence with joyful song. Know that Adonai is God, who made us, to whom we belong. We are God's people, sheep of God's pasture. Come into the holy gates filled with thanks, into the divine courts brimming with praise. Give thanks to Adonai, praise the name. For Adonai is good, your covenantal love is eternal. Your faithfulness will last through all generations. Beautiful song of thanks to start the morning. A few lines. First, the second half of line 3. Hu asanu velo anachnu. There are two readings of this, depending on how you choose to spell the second, the word lo. One reading is, God made us and we are God's, which is to say our gratitude is born of relationship. We are inextricably bound with the Holy One, and that is the source of gratitude. Another reading, Hu asanu velo anachnu. God made us and we didn't, which is to say God made us, we didn't make ourselves. I like this reading because it implies that what we have in this life is not so much earned. We should approach everything that we have as a gift, as a blessing. One of my teachers, Rabbi Shai Held, says one of the most important things to understand as Jews is that this American notion of being a self-made man or woman, a self-made person, is a false and harmful myth, because really, truly, there is no such thing as a self-made person. We're all dependent on one another in so many ways. Perhaps now we see this more than usual, how much we depend on the doctors, the nurses, all the caregivers, the scientists, the cashiers, the drivers, the grocery stockers. I mean, all the people that make us. So when we say God made us and we didn't make ourselves, we mean that we're the accumulation of all this enormous, beautiful creation that enables us to be. So let's reflect on that one for a moment. Stepping back a moment now, from the end of line two, Bo'u lefanav birnana, and then, which means come, enter into God's presence with joy. And that's echoed in line 4, Bo'u sha'arav betodah, enter God's gates with gratitude. So reflect for a moment on what are the gates that you will be entering through today. Perhaps you are working from home. Perhaps you're being with children or caring for others. Perhaps you're working hard, as I will be today, to finish cleaning for Pesach. But what are the gates that you will pass through? And how can you make it more likely that you pass through those gates with gratitude and with joy? And our final verse, the one that we'll chant this morning, comes from the beginning of the psalm. Ivdu et Adonai b'simcha, bo'u lefanav birnana. Translated here, serve God with delight. Come into God's presence with joyful song. Again, a couple possible readings suggested by Lawrence Kushner and Nehemiah Polan of this first part, Ivdu et Adonai b'simcha. One is serve God in joy, and the other is serve God through joy. The first one implies that joy is a state of being we should strive for while serving the Holy One. It's better to serve God in joy than to serve God in sadness or anger or jealousy or all the other emotional states we might be in. The second reading then makes joy a kind of possibility, but the first, serve God b'simcha, serve God through joy, implies that joy is precisely the vessel that enables us to perform sacred acts. It's a primary religious category, that joy is not just a state to strive for, but really a necessary state in serving the Holy One. So as we chant in a moment, I want you to reflect on how you can serve the sacred by bringing joy to the task. And maybe you have to bring yourself to sources of your joy. Maybe you have to reflect on what gives you joy and bring that into your intention. I want to hasten to add before we jump in, this doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time. Life is complicated and it's full of sadness and struggle. And that too is part of our serving the Holy One. Serve God through joy doesn't mean we can't bring other emotions into our spiritual life, our meditation, our prayer life. But to find joy in our service remains an important goal because joy is so often the place in which gratitude is born. Joy is not necessarily translating into gratitude all the time, but without joy, it's hard to get to gratitude. So let's chant this line a little bit. Again, it's simple. Ivdu, serve, et Adonai, God, b'simcha, enjoy. Ivdu et Adonai, b'simcha. 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 Ivdu Adonai, b'simcha. Let's just sit for a moment with your sources of joy, and we'll then take it out with Shema and a reading. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. We'll end with a psalm, a poem from the book Your Word is Fire, wisdom from our Hasidic sages. Take special care to guard your tongue before the morning prayer. Even greeting your fellow, we are told, can be harmful at that hour. A person who wakes up in the morning is like a new creation. Begin your day with unkind words or even trivial matters. Even though you may later turn to prayer, you have not been true to your creation. All of your words each day are related to one another. All of them are rooted in the first words that you speak.